Hey, welcome to day two. Last week, I was able to close a 30K marriage client all via email, no sales calls whatsoever. I covered day two yesterday where I went into all about the hook that was able to catch this prospect's attention, get her into the sales process, and eventually move her through where she was more than happy to pay 30K for this marriage coach to show up and potentially save her marriage. So if you didn't check that out after this video, feel free to go back, go through in a lot more detail what this offer was all about, the hook that I put forward to capture her attention. But today I want to get a little bit more into detail into the sales mechanism that I use, because again, you can catch your prospect's attention as much as you want, but you kind of have to start to reel them in. Kind of think of it as like fishing. Like you got the bait in terms of that hook, but they're not going to stay on the line if you don't further catch their attention, further increase their curiosity. And that's what we use the sales mechanism for. So I knew in this instance, I had to come up with a mechanism that really described what's different or what's missing from all the other counseling or any other courses that she's tried, to potentially say, like, this is different. This is how we're going to get your husband back into the fold. This is how we're going to potentially save your marriage. Talked about it yesterday. In this circumstance, it was a wife who has a husband that has a mistress, has kind of moved on to a different relationship. She is desperately seeking to save that marriage, get him back, dump that mistress, get back into that marriage, and hopefully over the next few months, be able to create a marriage that works and both of them working together and all those kind of things. So the coach that I'm working for is going to fly out to their location, spend a few days with them, kind of get to the bottom of what's really going on and give her insights into, okay, like, is this relationship something that she can save, and really give her the roadmap of the things that she can do to kind of turn the tide within his heart or his love. I kind of talked about the hook that I came up with, reigniting that burning desire in your checked out spouse's heart or brain or whatever you want to call it. Really reigniting that burning desire in terms of that hook is really what caught her attention. Now we kind of get into the sales mechanism. It takes a little bit more work, a little bit more strategy, but this is kind of the idea. So think about your prospects kind of sitting on, sitting on what I would call kind of hell island. So they're sitting on kind of like this really desolate island where they're constantly in pain with whatever they're dealing with right now. In this case, she's dealing with a marriage that's falling apart day by day, but it could be anything. If you're a health coach, it could be their health is completely getting out of control. They're gaining weight all the time. Their energy is going down all the time. And we wanted to give them access to a new way of getting results. So they look out beyond the horizon. They see, the mainland or that different island, that heaven island that they want to get to. On that island or that mainland, everybody doesn't have any of those relationship issues or health issues that they're dealing with. It's where they really want to be. That the outcome that they want is within their sight. They're just not sure exactly how to get there. There's a long, several mile swim that they have to get through, and there's sharks in the water. There's jellyfish. There's all these different obstacles that are preventing them from doing it. And maybe they've tried to get there on their own, but they kind of realize maybe halfway through or a third of the way through, like, this is just a little bit too far for me. I've got to turn back and go back to the island that I was. Or maybe they hired a coach. So again, like in the example that you might have got here too, like imagine all your coaching peers kind of lining up the shoreline with their kind of leaky inflatable boats, saying like, yeah, I can get you to the promised land, no problem. And the prospect can easily see, like, it doesn't have a lot of confidence that coach can get them there. Maybe they've hired a coach in the past that got them a little bit, got them some progress, but definitely didn't get them to where they want to be. So we've got to create a mechanism to kind of describe your process, to kind of bring it to life for your prospect about why your way is different, why you can get them there faster, easier, cheaper, and more efficiently than ever before. So this is the first time joining one of my lives. I'm Brian Czekanski, and I help coaches in particular 10x their high ticket sales. I do that all via email altogether. So no sales calls whatsoever. And most people, most coaches, when they hear that there's no sales calls, is like, okay, this is probably a gimmick. This is probably a scam. But I kind of take a step back and say, like, no, that, like, just like I did last week, booked a 30K client all via a series of email one-to-one conversations. I can do the same for you, ask for no upfront investment, and I take on all the risks. So I put my time, energy, and focus, especially with those specific coaches that meet my criteria, putting out a test to their list and enrolling clients on their behalf. at prices that make sense for them. All they have to do is fulfill on the clients that I deliver for them. So again, let's walk you through a little bit more in terms of the mechanism. I'll use, in terms of the process and how I was approaching this is like, how do I come up with a sales mechanism? So in my mind, I'm always thinking about like, what's a metaphor or analogy that will really make sense for this audience, that will really make sense in their day-to-day life, to really bring this to life. So as I thought about a relationship, as I thought about a marriage, there was a couple different metaphors that really stood out to me. Think about like anytime you say I do, I know in my own marriage, like one of the assumptions that you have is like once you say I do, that marriage is forever. But you kind of learn that relationships and particularly marriages is something that you have to continue to feed in. You have to nourish it. So I thought about the plant metaphor of like, okay, like this is something super simple with simple actions on a daily basis. Could be just like watering a plant takes a few seconds or a few minutes a day to nourish it and to give it a little bit of fertilizer to grow. You're doing the same thing from a marriage perspective, and that very much fit in line with the coach that I was working with. He doesn't rehash the past, just gives you those positive actions on a going forward basis to kind of reignite that love within your marriage and to get it to the point where it's the best it's ever been. So again, I thought about that plant metaphor. I thought about a car metaphor where, again, just like you have to fill up a car with gas every so often as you travel along, same thing with marriage, going around down the road, taking that long road trip of marriage. Along the way, you got to fill up. You got to fill up with fuel. And again, my coach provides that fuel to refuel it and get you to wherever you want to be, and not just stranded on the side of the road where divorce is an option or things like that. And then I thought about, okay, maybe a cell phone, thinking about the cell phone. Every time you use it, power is going down. We have to power it up at certain points in the day. But you can kind of see how it's just like really simple things, like just plugging in your phone or taking a few minutes to refuel your car or putting some water or some fertilizer with your plants, like super easy things that you can do, really illustrates his process and brings it to life. Those are all things that I was thinking about, but then I kind of thought back to what has worked well, even in outside industries that I've worked with. So just wanted to provide a few different examples, and it kind of took me to one of the emails that has worked the best. This is within the health space. So again, this kind of brings to life a little bit, like the metaphor here is really just a light switch on how like turning on and turning off certain things. So this is for kind of like this email went out to women's health prospects, kind of talking about a specific supplement that can help them lose weight and kind of change their dynamic. So you can see at the very top here in terms of like calling out the problem that they had. And eventually you get to the point where we kind of describe in terms of the mechanism, like what's your real problem here? So in this one, I talked about the body's fat storage switch has been accidentally turned on. So again, thinking about that light switch of kind of describing their problem, you didn't even know that you had a fat storage switch and now it's been turned on. Like that leads to really bad problems. I kind of describe those problems when that mechanism has been turned on. And then in kind of talking about the mechanism for the solution, kind of do it in that same way. I'm like losing that light switch type of an example in terms of like flipping your body's fat burning switch to on, off to on, instantly breaking down the food in your stomach, flushing away that ugly fat. So all those things, all those outcomes that my prospects want the most in the terms of using that metaphor or analogy in terms of a light switch. Again, in using these products, it's not going to instantaneously happen, but we want to create that perception of like, this is super easy. You flip the switch from where you are right now, you're suffering in pain to getting to the other side in terms of the solution that you're looking for. So eventually, as we get to the product on the other side, I'll show you the actual sales page of what this looked like. It has its own mechanism of its own. So you can see here at the top, the proven natural hormone reset trick for automatic weight loss. So think about those sales mechanisms. That's just an example of a sales mechanism that they came up with, kind of introducing hormones as like that main problem and talking about how you can reset those hormones from a natural perspective and generating and triggering that automatic weight loss. So just an example to kind of bring it to life in terms of that sales mechanism. But I kind of use that same thing again, using of what I've seen work, this in particular within the health space. How can I kind of translate that to relationships, to marriage, kind of use the same thing in terms of like turning on that light switch, in this case, kind of a checked out spouse that has moved on to a relationship, is ready to move on, is ready to divorce. kind of has that, like, whatever you want to call it. I had a couple different names that I was thinking about. Is it their passion? Is it their love? Is there intimacy? Eventually came to that final name that I was looking for, but really kind of like, how do I describe that switch? Like, their switch is turned off at this point, and this is why you're kind of pushing them away. How can we turn that switch on and realize all the outcomes that you're looking for? So an improved marriage where they dump the mistress, come back to you, they come back home, find ways and tools to improve your marriage along the way. So that's the kind of picture that I'm trying to create in my audience's mind, and using that specific mechanism to, again, I use the hook that I had in terms of like reigniting that burning desire in their checked out spouse. That's the hook. And then I had to really follow that up with a little bit of proof and credibility by introducing a sales mechanism that would further increase their curiosity, further increase their ability to get into that sales conversation. If I don't do that, especially with my process where I'm doing emails back and forth, they're not going to be willing to share a little bit more about their story. They're not going to share what they're looking for, any of those things. So my process, in the same way that a sales call would break down, my process really breaks down as well. So I've got to catch their attention. I've got to introduce a great hook. I've got to introduce a mechanism. I've got to share some testimonials, which I'll go through in the next few days, and kind of break down some of those objections up front. So do some pre-selling as well. But that first email that I send out as a broadcast to an email list is super important. It has to have a certain number of characteristics to not only catch their attention, stop them in their tracks, but to kind of increase their belief over time of like, okay, this time it's going to be different. This is, this has something that I've been missing before. And once I'm able to do something differently, I'm going to get results even better, quicker, faster, more efficiently than all the other options that are out there. So again, just picture your prospect on kind of that desolate island, and you are, providing that way forward for them to get to the other side. Again, it could be you just showing up in a helicopter or a yacht or whatever those things are, like a more efficient way of getting through versus all your other competition. That's all you're trying to do, is kind of just say like, okay, I realize you have all those other options out there. I've got a better way of doing this, and I can get you there, and feeding that curiosity. We want to, at each stage of the process, be increasing the curiosity, get them thinking like, oh, what is this? Like, if their curiosity is not piqued, if there's not open loops being created, the conversation's really going to die along the way. And again, for my process to get people to share a little bit more about what's going on, in this case, with their relationships and their marriage and their spouse, all those kind of things, I have to increase the curiosity from the very get-go and promise a new way forward to what they want the most really quickly. So that was a key way of doing that. So really think about the sales mechanism for your coaching. How can you how can you create a different way? Like, how can you even knock down some of the conventional wisdom or what other people are doing and offer a different way forward for people as you go about doing it? So again, talked about the hook yesterday, talk about the sales mechanism today. In future days, I'm going to talk about the type of questions that I got from this 30K what became a client for my marriage coach. I'm going to go through in detail some of the objections that I got. Obviously, one part of it is the cost of it. So I did have to have a series of conversations in terms of justifying that cost, talking through the return on investment. That wasn't anything surprising. So I did some pre-selling. I did include a lot of that in the materials that I gave her, even before we got to the point where she was either ready to buy or not. So I'll talk about some of those things that you can kind of get in front of your prospects and do. But there was one main objection that I didn't fully appreciate before that. So I'll talk about the one key belief that I really had to build up inside of the mind of this prospect to get her over the line in that. So I'll talk about that one belief, talk about some of the questions and objections that I was able to handle, and how you can do the same for your coaching business, especially if you have a 10K, 30K, 50K type of offer. All those things are going to be critically important between enrolling a bunch of people into your program and those people saying like, oh, I can't afford it, or it's not the right time, or any of those kind of things that you might be hearing on your sales calls right now. So if this was helpful, hit the like on whatever your platform you're watching on right now. If you're watching on YouTube, hit that subscribe button. Always coming out with high ticket sales advice, and what's working for me can certainly help you in your coaching business as well. And with that, I will see you on a future live.